Today on Robot Builders Club, I'm talking to Shamoon Siddiqui, the founder of Human Friendly Robotics. It's a company building a robot for the construction site. We talk about everything from what it takes to build a robot, to crypto and guinea pigs, to catfishing on the early internet, and why humanoids are the wrong abstraction. Why in robotics the easy problems are often the hardest ones. My name is Ali Afzal, and this is Robot Builders Club. All right, Shamoon, I appreciate you joining and giving me your time and being the first guinea pig to kick Robot Builders Club off. Started going, who from my network is part of robotics? And long behold, who shows up from my past, Shamoon, who's now a founder of this new company, Human Friendly Robotics. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me. It's been a while since we caught up, and I'm glad you reached out. Glad to be a guinea pig, because I think in some countries in Latin America, guinea pigs are a delicacy. So
That's true.
in certain places, I think in Ecuador, and I might be wrong, they actually raise guinea pigs as livestock to be consumed.
Yeah. Well, neither of us eats pigs. Or we will never know.
Yeah, that's
But
right. So I'm
who?
hoping that'll be the delicacy.
That's yeah. Maybe another guest who's tried guinea pig. We can ask them about
Dig in.
delicacy. Um, but like I wanna start by sort of framing how I see you. I remember I randomly reached out to you in 2008. We've had all of these different touch points, and I've seen you as somebody who's been ahead of the curve. We started off an online friendship, um,
Right.
which is which is
Which was actually kind of at the time, right? Now it's very normal and acceptable. But at
yeah,
the time, I'm glad we did because it was not a normal track to go down to connect with human.
exactly. And I when I reached out, I saw that you were already, in that space. You were launching products and you were creating software, applications, platforms, back end, front end, and you were on your way to be a serial entrepreneur even at that time. You were ahead of the curve. You were looking at Bitcoin. I remember you mentioning, hey, get into this Bitcoin thing. It was 2011 and it
So,
was under $5 at that time.
yeah.
And I said, I don't know about this, man. And then it was $50 and I got in at $500, but I didn't have the appetite for the risk. And I got out at $800. I'm digressing, but long story short, you've always been ahead of the curve. And now that robotics is taking off in a big way, we have all of these breakthroughs happening on AI front, kinematics front, and motion control materials. So it's fitting of you to be into this space. But how about you frame that journey of
Yeah.
how did you leave software and got into this robotic space?
So I guess we'll start with maybe being on the bleeding edge, that curve. So it's happened a few times in my life where I've been, I don't want to use the word right, but aware of a coming trend, coming innovation, something that's going to change, you know, how we do things, society, technology. Bitcoin being one example. I started getting involved in 2011. It would be stupid to have done it for money at the time because it was sub $1, sub $5. It's not a financial asset to be investing in, but it was challenging. It was hard. There was a lot of technical things that I had to understand that I had no knowledge of. What I know about cryptography. Suddenly I had to learn how all that worked. And that the love of the game is what kept me involved and excited. I think to find that cutting edge, you have to dive deep into whatever that state of the art happens to be. Fast forward through a few different software ventures and journeys and jobs and consulting gigs and startups, some of my own, some that I joined, to 2023.
Hmm.
I had this very enlightening moment where I realized that software engineering is by and large, I don't want to call it dead, but it's not thriving.
Right.
Once upon a time, if you could tack together a web page and a couple of React components, you could easily make 200, 250, 300 more job offers in a week. Easy,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of them can do all of that better than any one of us. And then I realized, okay, I'm not alone. Once upon a time, you didn't know how to write emails. Now you do. You didn't know how pivot tables worked in Excel. Now you're a data analyst. You didn't know how to do creative flyers or copy for your evites. Now you do. Entire jobs and knowledge work were just about to disappear. So I dug deep. So what's left? Well, physical work, not knowledge work. We've got automation in warehouses and factories through robots for about 40 years now. It's not new, right? Auto plants and fulfillment centers have been using some kind of robotics now for 10, 20, 30, 40 years at a clip easily. But the largest physical work still is construction globally. I don't care what the economy is, where the economy is, who's on the right, who's on the left. Things still have to get built and fixed and renovated and patched and improved in some way.
Right. And it's repetitive work, some of it
Yeah.
requiring precision, heavy lifting, it's backbreaking work.
And then in the digging, I came to a few interesting stats. So first, construction productivity per worker in America has declined since 1968 by 50%, which means your grandfather, let's say, or my grandfather at their prime, assuming they were in America doing construction, were outputting twice as much as someone today. Now, one could argue, well, it's safety and there's other considerations, which is true, right? People died building Empire State Building. That doesn't really happen anymore. But at the same time, no automation has really taken place to help augment that gap. It's still a dude and a hammer. The biggest innovation was a pneumatic gun, a power drill. For decades, a new jig to do something, a new way to align something, but not that really revolutionary change. But we're at a unique point now where if all knowledge work is gone, or easier to do, or more specialized or focused, or whatever PC friendly term you want to use, solving those problems is also much more attainable. To build simple robotics 30 years ago would take a team of 20 people and 2 years and more cash than you know what to do with. Now, it takes a few Claude Code subscriptions, a few off the shelf components, a few motors and controllers and drivers and so on and so forth. And you can hack together something pretty impressive in a weekend. Now,
Right.
making it production ready is a whole different game, of course, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. So where on that journey, your first product that you're demo ready, congratulations on that. Tyler, right? Fitting name for a tiling robot. Where does it stand right now on the maturity
Sure.
scale?
The company's Human Friendly Robotics. And the idea was initially I looked into humanoids because everyone was looking into humanoids. It seemed to be the next big thing. But then I thought how much me being a human does not correspond with me being able to do physical work.
Right.
Laundry sucks because all of the actions involved in laundry are really bad for your body. Picking up rocks, we don't do that. We've got cranes and excavators. Anything that's actual work, we have tools for because we're so ill equipped in our form. We've got other strengths. Sure, we're adaptable and intelligent and can think abstractly, but we can't do physical work very well. So why are we chasing humanoids? So I went the opposite way. Okay, if we're talking about specialized robots, what makes sense? Within construction, there's dozens and dozens of trades and subtrades and specialties. I could have focused on something incredibly niche or something incredibly heavy. And I figured an easy path to market is floor tiling. It's universal, global. A hospital in Mozambique and the Burj Khalifa, they both have floor tile, different quality and all that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the work literally spans the globe. And from a mechanics perspective, it's very repeatable. If you can lay 3 tiles, you can lay 30. If you can lay 30, you can lay 300. Now, of course, the real world is not quite as forgiving as math would have you believe, but it's a good starting point. And I get to have the pun of starting on the ground floor. So
Yeah.
after coming here for a tiling robot, I'm like, have to come up with a name. Tyler just seemed a little bit too perfect and on the nose. And once I came up with the name, I had to do the whole company.
Love it. Love it. You're starting off with floor tiling. Is the tile sitting, it's not being loaded into the robot itself, right? It's the
So
robot
earlier,
is picking it.
yeah. So as I'm sure you know in robotics, like in software, like in anything, it's very iteration heavy. Whatever idea you have is almost guaranteed the wrong idea.
Mm.
Whatever assumptions you have are definitely
Yep.
going to be disproven by reality very soon. So we started out with tiles on stack. We ran into limitations. You can only have certain format tiles. There's weight, there's battery, there's other constraints. So after actually talking to contractors, we realized that doesn't do much for them to have it on stack. We can just have the stack nearby and just go pick it up, drop it off, pick
Mm.
it up, drop it off way faster than if we were lumbering around with, 400 pounds of tile on us.
Got it. And what would you say starting off, what was the biggest problem that looked small at first and turned out to be the toughest to tackle in this space?
So going back to getting things off the shelf. Once upon a time, you'd need to manufacture everything you wanted. Nowadays, you can piece together things from McMaster or stuff on Amazon or wherever. 80/20 extrusions, you can hobble things together. But when it came time to pick up the actual tile, there was no easy off the shelf solution that I could find that would have the
Mm,
suction, form, the precision needed to actually, because as easy as tile may be, precision matters. We're talking about 1.5 to 2 millimeter gaps. These are not very forgiving in terms of their tolerances. So if your suction cup is not able to handle that, then you're a little bit in trouble, right? So that was way harder of a problem than I thought.
got it. So you're using suction cups, but the tiles could have different textures. It relies on does it rely on the a surface being fairly smooth and not have variation? How do you adhere
So
to that?
that's something that in doing research, I figured out factories and warehouses have been doing this for much more porous surfaces for decades.
Okay.
Boxes, for example. So I was kind of stuck on that issue, that perfect precision and non-porous issue, until I realized this is solved.
Mm.
And if you just have there's math, and of course, once upon a time you needed people that would do the math. Now, of course, GPT can do the math for you. How much suction force you need, how much surface area you need, how much volume you need, flow rate, all these things that a year ago I didn't even know were a thing. Now I'm thinking very much in volume and flow and
Yeah.
pressure.
Now you can launch a construction company. That's your next gig out of
You know, it's funny.
robotics.
As far as entry to the market, people have pitched exactly that to me. If you're going to make a tiling robot, and some interesting stats for you. Like most trades, there's unions for tile setters. And at least here in the New Jersey region, New York, New Jersey, the tile setters union, if you're a tile setter finisher, your all in labor cost is $105 an hour.
Wow. Yeah.
So if I'm really able to beat that, now that's union, of course. You've got your options. You can go union, you can go non union, you can go get the neighborhood kid that kind of does tile for his dad, the
Mhm.
pay up and down. But if I can undercut every single one of them, why not just do that?
And you're not going to get the hourly rate. It's normally the fixed cost. They will quote you based on the job and reliability and yeah, so
But I don't want to be
availability of the labor. All of those things are a consideration. So definitely a strong value proposition, right? You've done your homework and went to the use case. So that's awesome.
the
I want to ask you. This was not necessarily your first foray into robotics. I came across that article you wrote in 2024 talking
Mhm.
about the DARPA car challenge. There was a little news report around it. So you're no stranger to automation and you have a background in it. Launching a robotics hardware hard product is very different from shipping something that you can iterate like code continuously. So going into this new space, and this is important for founders that may be thinking about launching, going into the space. The floodgates are gonna open, right? And they already have in many ways when founders are gonna be launching these products. What mistakes would you say you made early on that you wish you could have avoided? That you could do it
So, are you
again, you would avoid.
familiar with Hofstadter's law?
No,
So you got Moore's law and all these things, right? So Hofstadter's law is a project will take longer than you think, even when you account for Hofstadter's law.
is it one of those? The
It's
last
a
20% takes the 80% of the time.
so
Yeah.
it's a Pareto type thing, but the Hofstadter thing is more interesting because it's recursive. The law is it will take longer than you think, even if you count for this law. So the there's no shortcut. There's no one thing I could say to a founder starting today doing a hardware robotic startup. Just use the blank because it's going to be wrong.
Hmm.
Our first iteration of Tyler was literally made out of wood. That is holistically wrong, but it got us thinking about shape and size and weight and proportions.
And you can manipulate wood much more easily than a machining component.
Yeah, I can cut some wood not well, but I can cut it well enough to see if my idea is worthwhile. So there's no real. If I had to do it all over again, what would I do? And if I had all the knowledge, I would do this version as the first version, right? But
Mhm.
if I was going to apply this to, let's say, another hardware startup or robotic startup, I don't know what's translatable. And I've talked to dozens and dozens of different robotics startups and founders,
Yeah,
and all of their what would you do different is so incredibly different.
right. Different journeys.
One company I talked to that said you should spend everything you can upfront on quality components because you're going
Okay.
to fight physics at some point, right?
Sure thing.
You've
Yeah.
got low quality motors. You're going to spend a lot of time in PID loops and battery voltages and amp measuring. Whereas if you get high precision motors or talk to other people that say they're not worth it, right? Because high quality motors aren't 20% more expensive. They're 20 times more expensive.
Got it. So it's the point being there's no one size fit all. It depends on what vertical you're going into, what challenges you're facing, what customers
Yeah.
you would have in front of you. So those what's guaranteed is it's going to be a journey. Mistakes will be made. You got to stay nimble. You got to iterate quickly.
What I tell
Build.
my almost daily is fail fast so that we can succeed quickly.
Yeah. So on that note, two questions I have. So let me ask in another way for your particular use case, knowing all that you do now, knowing building something that is demo ready. If you were starting off and somebody gave you 500K and three resources, any resources, what would you do differently?
I've thought about this quite a bit, what I do differently, right? So one thing is maybe I would hire more sooner, right? So we started building out a team more recently over the past few months. Before that, small group, myself, a couple of co-founders, just hacking away for months and months and months. But I think that would be a mistake because we didn't know what we were hiring for, right? If I brought in an engineer a year ago, what would he or she be doing? Is it a hardware person, software person? Is it a CAD person, electronics person? No idea. Now I know my needs. If it's going back to components and better parts, maybe. But like all hardware, we've got a very serious pile of things that we bought that we no longer need and will never have use for. So I don't know if I have
The
more.
scrap, that's I'm at J&J, right? A large medtech robotics company. And it's the same. Scrap is going to be there regardless whether you're starting small or large. The amount of scrap that differs. That's just the name of the game in hardware.
So, but if I do something differently, let's say magical 500K, starting with all of my knowledge, restarting today, I might invest more in 3D printers sooner.
Okay, got it.
I mean, it's small, it's not a 500K,
Yeah.
but 3D printers and local manufacturing, laser cutting, maybe a desktop CNC.
Did you source in China? Is that why you're saying the lead times were longer? What was the pain
Because it's
point?
always a weird, stupid bracket that you need.
Okay.
And it doesn't exist, right?
Got it.
Make
Yeah.
this to this. It's just no one else in the world apparently has had this problem at scale so that they have to make a bracket for it. But you need it. And
Yeah.
instead of just making the bracket, we found ourselves just getting a square into a circle, right? Just forcing it in there. But now that we're manufacturing and 3D printing and doing a little bit more of our local assembly manufacturing, we're finding that we can be a lot quicker and a lot more precise just by having the exact component that we need. And if it doesn't exist, we just manifest it into reality. The transition from moving bits to moving atoms, actually, there you go. So what one magical piece of advice would I have for someone starting today? At the very least, get 3D printers and get reasonable at CAD or find people that can do CAD so you can bracket things up as needed. We burned a lot of time on mating this to this. This weird motor mount doesn't fit with this thing.
Got it. And established companies, we use SolidWorks. Is that still what you guys are using?
Fusion is free, bro.
Okay. So they're free tools, and I'm assuming you went with ROS, like Open Robotics.
Yep.
All those frameworks.
Also, that's another thing. Initially, we were not using ROS because just going through the docs, it just felt like way too much for what we needed. We're just moving some stuff from A to B. Why do we need all this? And of course, we did the thing that every, ambitious newcomer does. I could do it better.
Yeah.
I could do it better. No.
Especially with your background, right? You're like, I can write code.
Yeah, like what's the big deal? We're just having communications between things. That's it. It's just a WebSocket. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
But no, it's once we switched to ROS, things accelerated from a software side because then we can also think more logically. This is the node that does gantry X motion, or this is the node that does the kinematics or the ML or whatever.
Got it.
It becomes isolatable.
Yeah. What else did you underestimate in your journey?
So the reason that the software career is, if not dead, but not thriving, is because it's had a large corpus of information to train on. All of Stack Overflow, all of GitHub. There's millions and millions and billions of lines of code out there it's trained on. So it's really good at making a React component to do whatever, or a Python thing to do whatever. It's much less trained on these problems. Sure, people have written academic papers on how to do a motion control system, and I'm sure there's some open source libraries here and there, but there's like 5, right? Whereas like JavaScript frameworks, there's like 500 that the LLMs have had to train on. So you can't rely on the LLMs for knowledge. You can use it as a thinking partner, but it cannot give you a definitive answer, and it will tell you that. If you ask a software question, it will give you the best way, the canonical way, the way that has been done in this standard thing or the Linux kernel or the whatever. But if you want to know, how do I tune a PID thing in varying conditions with off the shelf components, there's no one answer to do that. There's 36 different answers, and just trusting the first thing GPT says is not a smart idea.
Got it.
The education is still there. I'm still learning,
Yeah.
constantly challenging it, it challenging me.
Got it. And while you were working out the kinks, when you were getting a little bit of stability in your early prototypes, you were getting something that was starting to get there. What subsystem failed first? Was it mechanics? Was it perception? Was it control?
Suction.
Say it again.
Suction.
Okay.
Because we couldn't find an off the shelf quick thing that would be a good foam gripper thing. I bought a car dent puller from like AutoZone,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, that's a suction cup. I could fit something there, and I could, but it's a car dent puller. So, it's manufactured to be a car dent puller. Our hosing, I just had kinks and a lot of 90s and turns. No part of it was smooth. And if we're holding a tile and driving around and the littlest thing got off, just smash tile.
Oh wow. So you went through a lot of tile
Oh, yeah.
early days.
Well, I don't know if I should admit this, but a little hack. I went on, I guess, I don't know, DoorDash, one of these apps, and I actually think it was the Home Depot app, and I ordered 10 tiles for pickup, just 10 tiles.
Okay.
And I got there and they had 10 boxes.
It's one of those bank error in your favor.
Yeah, like, hey. And I did ask once, I'm like, you sure this is my order? Yeah, that's you, right? All right. I asked my one
Nice.
customer. I'm good.
You need little wins. The little guy needs some wins.
Still just like dozens of tiles that have just been unopened
Yeah.
for $6.
Love it. And so the poor Tyler, and I guess I don't know if you'd be at liberty of sharing a video that I can embed of Tyler, but I'm picturing poor Tyler with suction cups for hands, not nimble fingers.
Nope. So now, I mean, the one thing that we have solved the most reliably is now suction, right? So that
Nice.
was the biggest pain point. Now, again, just endless hours of YouTube videos of various foam grippers all over the world, endless hours of conversation with ChatGPT and Claude and the rest of it. We finally have a foam gripper pad that the pad with a very modest pump can hold hundreds of pounds. Now, Tyler himself is only 60 pounds, so we're not doing hundreds of pounds,
Yeah.
but it's guaranteed that the tile will not drop.
Nice. That's awesome. So we've talked about some of these challenges, right? How about on the positive side? What was something that worked surprisingly well without much effort? Was there something like that? A win?
Yes. So I got a LiDAR because it's a robot and you have to have LiDAR or else no one takes you seriously, apparently. And I thought to myself, I thought through all the mechanics of how I'm going to map the space. But then I forgot that I'm using Rust too. And I connected Slam Toolbox and now I've got a map in like 30 minutes.
Nice.
And
It's the
great.
vision system was a quick thing for you.
Well, not the tile vision stuff, just the room mapping.
Yeah, that's what I meant, that the Tyler can see really well. You gave Tyler eyes without much effort.
It was shocking how good it was, how accurate it was. Just a little bit driving around, and like your Roomba, it fully maps the room.
Wow. I would have not, that's counterintuitive. I would have not thought that that would be the easy part, plug and play.
Well, that's the benefit of working with Ross and these open, because the mapping problem has been solved now for like 30 years, right? This is not new. So that's one thing it does exceptionally well, the Slam Toolbox.
Have you looked into what NVIDIA Open Libraries it's releasing, the Groot set of libraries? I don't know if it's accessible to everybody. I haven't gone into the details, but they had that keynote address and the NVIDIA conference. I'm blanking on the name, but they laid out all of these open source and libraries in different areas. They have for autonomous vehicles and all these different applications, including robotics. They have I believe it's called Groot, the container.
Look it up.
Yeah. So that's the other part, that for somebody starting off today, there's all of this open source, not just coming from Ross, but there's others like NVIDIA that will enable you to accelerate development. Okay, let's switch gears into the customer side of things. I'm assuming that your customers, now that you have a demo coming up, your customers like Ritz-Carlton and others, they've seen the robot in action in person?
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is when we were still building, prototyping, tweaking, changing, I think part of any business is you should be doing customer discovery as early as possible. Even if all you have is 2 slides and an idea, you should be out there talking to a customer because that's that feedback fast. We ran into 2 pretty oppositional groups. Group A you're going to take my job and I hate you.
Okay.
Okay. And group B, when can I get this thing?
Interesting.
And it's straight dichotomy, right? Obviously, and I get both, right? I do get the taking my job fear, but the answer to that is no, we're not. America currently has a 500,000 construction worker shortage. So
Yeah.
we'd have to backfill all those before we even came for job number one.
Yeah.
And for group two, as I'm sure you know in robotics in the real world, everything always works great in the lab. Well, even then, maybe not,
Yeah.
right? But you get out to the field, things start to break. Batteries start to drain oddly quicker for some reason, right? Like I swear this had 7 hours of runtime yesterday and now it's like 3.
Yeah.
What changed?
Tyler was stage shy.
Yeah, literally. So we have our first demo project coming up with the Ritz-Carlton in Puerto Rico. So we're doing a pilot with them. So it got, destroyed by the hurricane back in 2018, I want to say. So they're rebuilding it. So that's our first pilot project coming up next month, actually. And they're
Nice.
pretty excited because Ritz-Carlton being in Puerto Rico presents a challenge in that labor is hard to bring in. Finding
The-
people to do Ritz quality work is a challenge.
Okay, so that's one of the value propositions that you were able to capitalize on, the precision,
Yep.
and they don't need,
Tyler doesn't go on TikTok, take smoke breaks, or check Instagram.
yeah, for now, till it develops a personality
Yeah.
and
Well,
unionizes.
yeah. So we'll get there. But that was, I think, there was one guy I was talking to. He actually reached out to me. Now our website's not great at having a ton of information, but he was talking about his staff and the issues he has. And we started talking about numbers and pricing and everything. And he said, I actually don't care how much it costs. I just cannot deal with people calling out of work. He said he's lost
Wow.
with people just calling out because there's
Yeah.
reputational risk. There's a job risk, right? It's not just the lost days income.
Yeah.
If you mess up a big project, you're never getting the project again.
Got it. And so unpack a little bit of that customer experience business model thing. Are you thinking that this will be, like with anything else, a subscription for the
RAS,
customer?
RAS,
A
robotic.
recurring.
Well, here's the thing. So construction companies, they don't like capital expenditure. They don't like to buy equipment, but they're very happy to rent it.
Mm,
So you'd have to be quite the large tile setting company to justify buying a robot, no matter what the cost is. But you already rent stuff. You probably
yeah.
rent a tile saw, right? You probably rent if you've got a backyard to do a backhoe. You don't own the backhoe, so why should this be any different?
Got it. And do you foresee working with some of these large construction wholesalers like Home Depot and
Yep. So that I think
Lowe's?
that's within our 2-year plan to do exactly that, right? You have Best Equipment Rental, Sunbelt. You have all these big equipment rental companies that are nationwide, and global even, just getting there. And then the Home Depots, the Lowe's, whoever else, the local Avalon Flooring or Dow Tile.
Yeah. And your intended customer at the end of the day is going to be a construction company. It's not, your mom and pop that are on a weekend looking to retile their bathroom floor. That
So that's the difference between 2 years and call it 10 years, right? So
yeah.
2 years, absolutely, it's construction. It's a GC or a large flooring company that needs to get flooring done. But longer term, why not? If you or me or your wife or whoever wants to redo the kitchen, why can't you just go to Home Depot and DIY?
Yeah. That's
Well, Thailand, clear is just the beginning, right? So we have a companion robot called Morty, and he does the mortar because you have to lay the thin set under the tile.
okay.
After that, we're going to tackle all the finishing trades,
So
everything inside 4 walls.
So you're okay, that changes things. I thought that somebody else has already laid down the mortar and it's just so you already have one robot that has a container of cement or paste, whatever you want to call it, that lays it
Well,
down.
mortar because Morty works as a name then. See?
Yeah. You're love it. You're really good at the marketing side of things, coming up with names. I also like how you got the .bot
Yeah.
domain name. So
And one thing I think a lot of people don't really have that, but they will soon. I think it's going to start to pick up more. Like the .ai's wasn't a thing for a while, but it's
yeah.
now everyone's got it.
I didn't see it. Well, when I was registering robotbuildersclub.org, I was thinking .com. I was looking for, there was no, I didn't look
I don't
hard
remember
enough.
what I used, but I mean, clearly it's possible, right?
Yeah.
So actually, that's another lesson. Tyler and Morty were supposed to be one combination bot that do both, but the sheer number of moving parts to make that happen was becoming no longer worth it, where it was just operationally easier to split them into 2 bots. Then you can have different groups of people working on Morty or Tyler or whatever. Because before, when we were doing it all in one, If someone's making a change to the pump configuration for the mortar, how's that going to affect the battery life of Tyler? All of these things have to be factored in.
And
Now, two bots, two things, and they're both fast and small.
have you had a person, a actual Tyler, provide input into how it would work practically?
Like,
Is the
no,
same person?
we've had a ton of feedback from actual tile setters.
Okay.
And that's guided our thinking and our process. Case in point, when you lay the mortar on the ground, you got to trowel it and notch it and have all the right thickness. But we didn't factor in that when you push the tile in on it, it spreads the goop out and then it can get
Mm,
in those outlines. So you don't want to be pushing so much that it's just coming above the tile, right?
you just gently need to place it.
Put uh, 98% coverage on the tile so that when you squish it down, you get to 100.
Got
So
it.
that, again, seems easy. It's what, two sentences? But then to figure out what does a little bit mean, as I'm sure you know in robotics,
Yeah.
that's a very infuriating phrase, right? Just do it a little bit.
You got to characterize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a number. What does a little bit mean? And we've had tile setters that help us think through what a little bit means. And what
And
does straight mean, right? Straight is a very, very difficult world in the tile setting world. Straight to the
yeah,
earth, straight to existing tiles, straight to the frame, straight to the structure. What are we talking about?
interesting. That's the challenge, right? Because construction, it's a it's a science, but a lot of it is very, very subjective, almost like an art form.
Oh,
And you got to take that art form and characterize it into actual forces and angles and numbers.
and speed, right? That's the tricky part because for this all to be worth it, Tyler better be faster than a person.
Yeah.
So we're somewhere between 3 to 5 times faster than a human tile setter. And I say somewhere between because it depends on the room and the configuration. Are there a lot of, columns in the way? So on the low end, call it 3 times faster. On the high end, 5 times faster. So we do have a lot of margin to give up to have these angles and forces.
Gotcha. No, that's very fascinating. It's interesting that you chose for your very first project not a vacuum cleaner or something that potentially was a easier problem to solve, and you went for something this complicated. Was that by choice, or why did you go into something that had so much friction?
You underestimate how hard something is if you don't do it,
Got
right?
it. Yeah.
If you're just watching some guy lay tile, you're like, that's easy.
Yeah. You're
But then
like,
if you
oh,
have to
it's
do
just
it,
a paste with a little thing on
yeah.
top. We can do it.
But
Yeah.
then when you start to get into it, you realize that that guy has spent decades being able to do that in, 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's
So
hard
after
to
accumulate
build
all that knowledge,
something. It's hard to do construction and build, for sure.
well, actually, so there's something for you. LLMs work because we've got 5,000 years of written language for them to train on,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Everything from Shakespeare to religious texts to racist tweets and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
The real world has no training data,
Yeah.
right?
Isn't
They're
skilled
starting.
AI, I don't know if you've
Yeah.
seen, so that is their value prop, that they're able to give you training data, right? If I understand it correctly.
So it's the whole Bitcoin thing. Bitcoin was not a company creating a new token or form of assetization. It was a new paradigm. LLMs didn't train on one company's corpus. They trained on all language. So any data provider that's providing training data for the real world is definitionally filtered through that very small lens. So now we're going to start to see silos. We're going to start to see gates. When Tesla has their FSD, they're not sharing all that training data with Waymo and vice versa, right? They
Right.
both have real world data now. So if there's our company, Human Friendly Robotics, that's getting all this data on how tile setting actually happens, and when we move to walls and electrical and plumbing, all of this data, I don't know if we're gonna be happy to share it. Maybe we'll. Maybe there's a proposition there, but as of now, no, because it's incredibly valuable because it doesn't exist, right? So if
Yeah.
there are companies providing real world data, I'm sure it's valuable. I'm sure it's high quality, and I'm sure that it's good, but it's necessarily filtered through the lens of one company's org or two or three
Yeah. There are all
versus
these
all of it.
moats and all these fences, which I guess on specialized knowledge work, that is the case too. You don't have a lot of data that is specific to an industry
Mhm.
openly available for chat GPT and LLMs to train on.
In the physical world, I mean, we have VLAs and we've got different models and we've got things that do
Yeah.
different simulations and Isaac Sim and all that's pretty good. But the issue with any simulator is physics doesn't care.
Yeah.
All of your sims work great until one gear somewhere in your chain has one tooth that's just a little bit off.
Yeah. all those
So I think
challenges.
there's so going back to one of your first questions, what advice? Start collecting as much data as you can, even if you have no way to
Mm,
parse it or process it,
for your particular vertical that you're entering around your customer, around the challenges. Yeah.
because you can
Okay.
learn data, and we do. We look at our logs all the time. We're doing actually this morning we were doing a tile placement test to test this camera thing that we're putting on, and it's just because we've got decent logging, everything became so much easier.
Mm,
Oh, we
yeah.
overshot or we undershot, or actually it's because there's vibration, and we've got all that.
How does that interface work in terms of the HRI, right? Being able to give it instructions, and then the on the back end side of things, how do you get the data and analyze it?
So, because everything's raw spaced, everything's got a node and everything has its own log stream. So then we can collate the log stream and then process it, parse it, send it, and do whatever we want to do with it. Now, we're not doing a lot of data analysis right now, but we've got a lot of data.
Got it. And what about, so that's the analyzing the data that is being the performance data and
Mhm.
everything, how the robot is performing. But how do you give it instructions? How is the interface working? How does the construction worker go?
So everything is done through a simple iPad app. You can say, I've got 12 by 12 tiles. I want one, 1/16 inch spacing between them. I want a grid pattern or this pattern or that pattern. Here's my starting point. I want 10 rows, 14 columns, and then do your work.
Got it. So the robot is able to see and that gets translated on the iPad. So the worker goes, "This is what the robot sees. Here's the grid, and this is where I want you to put
And
tile."
then get. However, so that is the capability. But for our first few pilot projects, we will not be doing that. We'll be doing semi-autonomous because you
Got it.
gotta, autonomous may work great in the lab, but it's not going to work great at the Ritz Carlton.
Yeah, right. The autonomous is not general purpose autonomous. It is based on certain conditions that you have
Yep.
laid out in the lab. And when you meet the real world, that's
Doesn't
and
care.
you have to have flexibility there. So that's, yeah, that's
Where
important
we can do,
point there.
where we can do some driving, some interruption. Maybe the autonomous is going a little, where we don't want it to, or how we don't want it to, so we can take over. But then the highly precise things of actually placing the tile, that's autonomous because the computer vision is going to be better at it than me and my thumbs.
Got it. Okay, we've talked a lot about the building of the robot piece. Let me switch gears a little bit. Let's go into building the org, building the team. Who was your first hire? What role did that person play? And then also which role did you hire too late?
So my philosophy over doing many startups and over many decades now, it's a little brutal maybe, but I think it works. Hire fast, fire fast. If you find someone you like them, give them a shot. If it doesn't work out for any number of reasons, you know, part as friends.
Man,
It's
you're
just starting.
brutal. I wouldn't want to work with you. Underperform, and I don't even get a performance review or a performance
Well, that's the
improvement
thing, right?
plan. I'm out.
That works at Microsoft. You can have a 3-month
Yeah,
PIP and whatever, right? But here,
yeah,
if I give you a 2-day PIP, like that's 2 days of, very,
makes
very
sense.
limited resources being spent. And I think it's beneficial for you in this case because this just isn't the right fit, right?
Yeah,
Why do you want to waste another 2 months trying to perform something when this just isn't the place that you're going to succeed? My first full time hire was actually 3 months ago, I want to say, robotics engineer. Now, as I'm sure you know, that is a very vague term, right? What does that mean? What do
mechanical,
you hope to be
electrical.
if you hire a JavaScript engineer, you know what they have to be able to do. If you hire a machine learning engineer, they better know PyTorch. But if you hire a robotics engineer, do they have to know ROS? Do they have to know CAD? Do they have to know electrical circuits? Do they have to know PCB design? Do they have to get, on their hands and screw things in? Do they have to solder? Yes, 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 and yes, right? You have to do all those things. So that was the first hire. He actually moved on after a month. I think it was just not a good fit for him, which we're still friends. We text every 2, 3 days and I'm helping him out however I can. He gives me advice, but it also helped me realize what do I mean by robotics engineer? Do I mean someone that's more software focused, more hardware focused, more electrical
Mhm.
focused, more controls focused, more ML focused? So now when I'm looking, I have a different lens on to build out that team. I thought about hiring a BD person because, whether or not you've got a fully finished product or just a pitch deck, you better be talking to customers. I decided against that because I have to be the BD person because the story keeps
Mm,
changing, right? What we are capable of doing, what we will be capable of doing, changes by the week. There's no
business
time
development.
for that. So if I'm not out there pounding the pavement, having those conversations, no one else will.
And the podcast. Who is going to do all these podcasts? The P-
Exactly. What might get some other guy to do the podcast? Come on. Ops is something I probably hired a little bit too late, if you want to say.
okay. Ops, unpack that. What do you mean by ops?
I don't know what the framing is or the correct term is, but do I really want to be running payroll twice a month?
Okay. From that standpoint, day to day operations.
Day to day operational stuff. We're onboarding somebody new. Who's getting their confidentiality paperwork signed? Who's getting them set up into our Google workspace? Who's setting them up with the GitHub access? Am I really going to spend 2 days setting them up on all that? I have, but it's probably not the best use of my time.
I think by the virtue of having a startup, that would always be something that you only hire when you're starting to feel the pain.
Yes.
You can't really plan for it. It dawns on you that your baby of a company is growing up, and its needs require an additional person to take care of
Yeah.
the day
It's
to
not a
day.
higher number one for sure. It's maybe a higher number like 4 or 5, right? But I think like if someone that helps with ops is higher number 10 or 20, then the founder is feeling pain for too long.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want to self-aggrandize myself or other founders, but we do have to context switch constantly. I don't get to just sit and code for an hour. I don't get to sit and tinker for an hour. I don't get to sit and this is probably the longest I've done one thing in weeks, this podcast.
Really? Wow. I feel special. That's appreciate you giving the time.
So at some point I need to figure out how to clear my plate a little bit so I can get back to whether it's BD or it's engineering or it's recruiting. As a founder, you should be recruiting 5 to 10% of your time.
Gotcha. How about the fundraising side of things, the capital? I know you weren't coming fresh into this space. You had raised money for your other
Yep.
ventures, but
So we raised a small pre-seed round for this. It's a full-time job. During that, call it 3 to 4 weeks, I was not building, I was not coding, I was not doing anything, but and I can't explain where the time went, just conversations and calls and Zooms and decks and contracts and this and
Mm,
that. It took, 3 weeks, call it a month. And a friend of mine told me, you can either be building or you can be fundraising. You can't be doing both. And I
mm,
thought to myself, the hell does he know? I'll show
yeah,
him.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, I get it. You cannot be doing both. So you have to allocate time. Like this month I'm fundraising. I'm not going to touch the robot. I'm not going to touch anything. And I'm just going to fundraise. But especially that early, if you don't touch it, nobody does, right? So
Yeah. What proof point mattered most to your backers? Was it being able to see what the prototype is?
a very, very, very crude prototype helps a lot.
Okay.
Not so much because the prototype was any good or this and that, but because it showed I'm serious.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you invest in a startup, you don't invest in the product, you invest in the founder's commitment to see it through. We're
And the
going to
track
have to pivot.
record, right?
We're going to have to change. And you want someone that's fully vested so that they're going to say, whatever may come, I'll fix it.
Was it the wood Tyler that you showed, or
So this was right after that. This was the 6-foot version that carried a bunch of tiles on stack.
gotcha? And I'm sure your track record on other efforts that probably also helped. Did you position your software background when you
Yeah.
were?
Well, many people in our cap table, they've known me for a few years or known, me through a friend or friend of a friend kind of thing. So that definitely helped in some way. However, like all things, it's on me to deliver. Right. And that's truer every day.
Gotcha. Well, I've had a lot of fun learning about Tyler and your journey and reconnecting with you. Frankly, it's been so long. How about we
You're not
take it
catfish.
home? Huh?
The catfish is still not going on, right?
I'm playing the long game.
Uh,
It's that's you'll never know. So how about we take it home with a lightning round? I'm going to throw some questions at you, and you answer what comes to your mind. So, what are you most bullish on, Bitcoin or robotics?
See, that's a little bit of a potentially heretical question for me to answer. I've been a Bitcoin, not maximalist, but absolutist now for 14 years, 15 years. I still do believe in Bitcoin. I think that it is the only true asset of any stability that we're going to have in the future. But I think the days of hypergrowth are gone. There'll be growth. It'll probably outpace any other asset. And I know this is lightning, and I know I'm getting a bit winded in my answer.
One or two word answer, but I
Summary
get it.
robotics, because this is the beginning.
Got it. Chai or coffee?
Coffee. That's not even a real question.
What would you never automate in your life?
Self-care.
What robot part did you regret sourcing?
That goddamn car dent puller.
What's still duct taped
Or
on
wires.
the robot? Wires?
Our wires and our wire harnesses. There's a zip tied and duct taped everywhere.
Got it. What are you not deliberately building it?
Lower value labor propositions, right? So when it comes to tiling, there's effectively three parts. There's the thin set, which we've got Morty for. There's tiling, and there's the grouting after. We've been asked about grouting a ton, but the truth is it's not very labor intensive.
Tell me one thing that humans do better than robots, hands down.
Oof, it's
Wow.
dark, but that it's becoming less and less.
Wow. You really are bullish on robots.
I mean,
Relationships? I was going to go relationships.
well, you could say that, right? But if you talk to ChatGPT, it empathizes with you, or at least fake empathizes with you better than
Yeah.
any person ever has. You're so smart, Shamoon. How'd you come up with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it does rub your shoulder a little bit, and there's so many people that are now in relationships with their chat GPT, their LLMs. Okay, what part of this robot made you briefly going back to software?
No part of it, I think, because I get to still play with software.
Good answer. If your robot could complain about humans, what would it complain about?
I think the same complaint that humans have about humans. Please accept me for who I am and stop trying to improve me.
Love it. All right. On that note, I appreciate you being on the podcast and helping me launch this thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a pleasure.
It's been great.